I found out I was being transferred from the worst possible place. An email sent at 6:17 p.m., just late enough to ruin the evening, just early enough that I couldn't ignore it. No warning, no meeting, no explanation. Just a subject line that felt like a sentence. Organizational restructure, immediate effect. I stared at my screen until the words blurred. 2 years of late nights, weekends sacrificed, projects carried on my back, and suddenly I was being moved to a department known for quiet exits and stalled careers. And there was only one name attached to the decision. Hers. The woman everyone whispered about in the hallways. The executive who never raised her voice. The one whose approval meant everything, and whose silence could end you. I shut my laptop and sat there, hands shaking, heart pounding so hard it felt personal. This wasn't just a job, this was my future, my independence, the proof that I belonged in rooms I'd fought to enter. I didn't cry, not yet. I waited until the office was empty, the lights dimmed automatically, and the cleaning crew began their slow rounds. Only then did the tears come, hot, angry, humiliating. I didn't hear the door open. I didn't expect to find you still here. Her voice was calm, too calm. I wiped my face quickly and stood, pretending dignity I didn't feel. I was just finishing something. She looked at me for a long moment, not like a boss evaluating performance, but like someone noticing something fragile they hadn't meant to touch. "I owe you an explanation," she said. I laughed, sharp and broken. "Do you?" She didn't flinch. Yes. I wanted to scream at her, ask how she could do this to me, ask what I'd done wrong, ask why my entire career felt like collateral damage in a decision she'd made over coffee. Instead, I said quietly, "You could have warned me." Her jaw tightened, not defensively, but with something that looked like regret. I didn't want this to happen the way it did. That's when it broke me, because people who don't care don't say things like that. "I thought you ruined my career," I whispered before I could stop myself. The room went very still. She took a step closer, slow, deliberate, as if approaching something that might shatter if handled wrong. "If that were true," she said softly, "I wouldn't be here." I didn't know what to do with that, or with the way her eyes searched my face, not assessing, not judging, but concerned. "I didn't move you because you failed. I moved you because you were becoming visible." I frowned. Visible is bad now? In certain rooms, very. I had spent my entire career believing visibility was the goal, that if I worked hard enough, spoke clearly enough, delivered results, I'd be safe. She was telling me I was wrong. "You were being positioned," she said carefully, "as a problem someone else wanted solved." My stomach dropped. "I didn't have the power to stop it completely," she admitted, "but I could redirect it, buy time." I shook my head, overwhelmed. "So you hid me." "I protected you." The word landed heavier than anything else she'd said. I wanted to hate her. I had hated her all day, but hate requires certainty, and suddenly everything felt uncertain. "You should have trusted me," I said. "I didn't trust myself," she replied. "Not with you." That was the moment something shifted. Not romance, not yet. Something quieter, something dangerous. I looked at her differently then, not as the woman who signed my transfer, but as someone standing too close, saying things that felt personal in ways they shouldn't. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "I believe you," I said, surprising both of us. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Come with me," she said. "To where?" "Somewhere not fluorescent," she replied, almost smiling. I hesitated. This is how rumors started. This is how boundaries blurred. But my career already felt broken, my heart already felt bruised, and something in her voice, steady, careful, sincere, made me want to follow. Her apartment was nothing I expected. No luxury museum, no sterile perfection. Just warm light, books stacked in lived-in ways, a couch that looked slept on. "You live like a person," I said before thinking. She laughed quietly. "I try." She handed me a glass of water. Not wine, not anything misleading, just water. "I won't ask you to forgive me tonight, or trust me. I just didn't want you to go home thinking you were disposable." I looked around, then back at her. "You didn't have to do this." "I wanted to." There it was again, that feeling, that line that crossed something invisible. I realized then that this wasn't about my job anymore. It was about the way she watched me, like my reactions mattered. The way her voice softened when she said my name. The way the distance between us felt charged, not professional. I thought she ruined my career, but standing there in her quiet apartment with the city glowing outside the windows, I began to wonder if she'd actually just changed my life. And I had no idea how dangerous that realization would become. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was afraid of what might happen next, but because my mind kept replaying the same moment over and over again. The way she'd said my name, the way the apartment had felt quiet but not empty, the way she'd looked at me like I was something she was trying very hard not to want. By morning, my anger had softened into something more complicated. I showed up to the new department early, like always. Different floor, different faces, same building, but it felt like I'd been quietly erased. People smiled politely, asked me where I was from, nodded when I explained. No one said the word transfer out loud, but everyone knew what it meant. A demotion without the paperwork. I focused on the work. That's what I'd always done. When things got messy, I made myself useful, indispensable, invisible in the right ways. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown contact. "Did you eat?" I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Me. "Not yet." Unknown contact. "Come downstairs. 5 minutes." I should have said no. I didn't. The cafe across the street was quiet, midweek empty. She was already there, sitting in the corner with her back to the window, blazer off, sleeves rolled up like she'd stepped out of herself for a moment. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I didn't say I was happy about it," I replied. She smiled, not defensive, not smug, just relieved. "I wouldn't expect you to be." We ate in silence at first, comfortable but not casual. Every word felt weighted, like it could tip something over if said wrong. "They're watching you," she said eventually. "Less now, but they will again." "So this is temporary," I said. "Yes." "And then?" She met my eyes. "Then you'll move somewhere that matches your talent, somewhere safe." I laughed under my breath. "You keep saying that word like it exists here." "It can," she said, "but only if we're careful." We. That single word felt intentional. I set my fork down. "Why me?" She didn't answer right away. She looked at her coffee like it might confess something for her. "Because you don't play the game," she said finally, "and that scares people who only know how to win." "That didn't scare you?" She looked up then. It did. There it was again, that honesty that didn't belong in corporate conversations. After lunch, we walked back separately, deliberately. The space between us felt louder than the conversation had. The next few weeks blurred together. She checked in, not constantly, not obviously. A comment on a report, a question during a meeting, a late-night email that ended with "thank you" instead of "best regards." Nothing inappropriate, nothing reportable, everything personal. I started noticing her in ways I hadn't before. The way she listened when others spoke, not to respond but to understand. The way she never interrupted. The way her authority didn't come from volume but certainty. And the way she looked at me when she thought no one else was paying attention. It wasn't hunger, it wasn't ownership, it was restraint. One evening, after a particularly brutal meeting where my ideas were dismissed by someone half as prepared as I was, I stayed late again, not to cry this time, just to breathe. She found me in the break room, staring out at the city. "You handled that well," she said. "I didn't. I swallowed it. Sometimes that is handling it." I turned to her. "Do you ever get tired of holding things back?" Her expression softened. "Every day." We stood there longer than necessary, close enough to feel the heat of each other's presence, far enough that nothing touched. "This isn't smart," I said quietly. "No," she agreed, "but you're not stopping." "Neither am I." I should have walked away. Instead, I asked, "What happens if someone notices?" Her voice dropped. "Then I step in." "And if it costs you?" She didn't hesitate. "Then it costs me." That scared me more than anything else, because people with power rarely offered to risk it. The night everything shifted, it was raining. A sudden storm, loud and unapologetic, like the city itself was tired of pretending. My car wouldn't start. I stood there in the garage, soaked and exhausted, trying not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. Her car pulled up beside me. She didn't say a word, just unlocked the passenger door. I got in. Her apartment felt different that night, less neutral, more charged. She handed me a towel. "You can stay until the rain passes." It didn't pass. We talked instead, about things that had nothing to do with work, where we grew up, what we'd given up to get here, the parts of ourselves we hid because they didn't fit neatly into ambition. "You don't belong where you're hiding," she said at one point. "Neither do you." She smiled. "I know." The space between us closed without either of us deciding to move. One second there was air, the next there wasn't. "I won't cross a line you don't want crossed," she said softly. "I don't know where the line is anymore," I admitted. She reached out, slowly, and stopped just short of touching my hand, waiting. I closed the distance. Her fingers curled around mine like it was something she'd been resisting for a long time. The contact was gentle, grounding, devastating. "This changes things," she said. "Yes," I replied. She didn't kiss me, not yet. Instead, she rested her forehead against mine and breathed me in like she was memorizing the moment. "I thought you ruined my career," she whispered. "I didn't," I said. "You just made me see what I'd been missing." And standing there, rain streaking the windows, her hand warm in mine, I knew we were past protection now. This wasn't about saving my job. It was about whether we were brave enough to want each other anyway. I didn't realize how visible we'd become until someone else said her name in my ear like a warning. We were leaving a meeting, nothing unusual, just another long discussion wrapped in polished language, when a colleague leaned in close as we walked down the hallway. "Careful," she murmured, not looking at me. "People are starting to notice." I stopped. "Notice what?" She glanced ahead, where my CEO, Mai, was already halfway down the corridor, posture flawless, expression unreadable. "Patterns," she said. "Timing. Who defends who?" Then she walked away. The rest of the day felt wrong. Every email sounded louder, every glance felt heavier. I caught myself watching her more carefully, measuring distance, controlling my body language, pretending my pulse didn't jump every time she spoke directly to me. We hadn't kissed. That somehow made it worse. Wanting something you haven't taken yet has a way of sharpening every nerve. That evening, she didn't text. I told myself it was smart, necessary, but the absence felt intentional, like a test I hadn't been told I was taking. When my phone finally buzzed, it was after 9. "Her, can you come by? We need to talk." The words "need to talk" shouldn't have hit so hard, but they did. Her apartment lights were low when I arrived, not intimate, controlled. She was already there, standing near the window, jacket still on, like she hadn't been able to settle. "I shouldn't have let this get as far as it has," she said before I could speak. My chest tightened. "Is this where you tell me it was a mistake?" "No," she said quickly. "It's where I tell you I'm losing control of the situation." She turned to face me. "Someone questioned my decision in the last board call, not openly, but it was there." About me? About loyalty, she said. About judgment. I swallowed. So now I'm a liability. Her expression hardened, not at me, but at the idea. You are not. But I make you one. She stepped closer. You make them nervous. That wasn't comforting. I didn't expect this, she continued. I thought I could manage it, manage us. I crossed my arms. And now? And now I need to know, she said carefully, if you're prepared for what it might cost. I laughed once, sharp. You mean my career? You already took that hit for me. No, she said softly. I mean mine. That stopped me. She had everything. Power, reputation, control. I'd never imagined she'd put any of it at risk for someone like me. I never asked you to, I said. I know, she replied. That's why I did. The silence stretched, heavy, honest. Someone's trying to undermine you, I said slowly, and I'm the angle. Yes. And if this comes out, if we come out, it becomes ammunition. She nodded. Exactly. I took a breath. Then maybe we stop. The word felt wrong the second I said it. Her eyes flickered, not with relief, but pain. Is that what you want? No, I admitted, but wanting something doesn't make it safe. She looked at me like she was seeing me fully for the first time, not as an employee, not as someone she needed to protect, as an equal. You're stronger than you think, but I won't drag you through something you didn't choose. I stepped closer. I chose this the moment I followed you home. She smiled faintly. You didn't follow, I invited. I reached for her hand again, and this time she didn't hesitate. The kiss happened without ceremony, no fireworks, no urgency, just warmth, connection, a quiet understanding that this was no longer theoretical. She pulled back first. This changes nothing at work and everything everywhere else. The next few days were tense. Meetings grew sharper, conversations clipped. I noticed someone else sitting in on calls that never used to require witnesses. HR requests increased. A wellness check landed in my inbox, friendly but loaded. And then there was her, the rival, the one who'd always seemed too interested in my projects, too eager to step into conversations that weren't hers. Suddenly, she was everywhere, offering help, asking questions, watching. She's probing, I said one night, pacing her apartment. She's fishing, my CEO corrected, and I won't give her anything. But she didn't have to. One misinterpreted moment, one overheard comment, one glance held half a second too long. That's all it took. The day everything cracked, I was called into HR. Neutral room, neutral tone, neutral smiles. Some concerns have been raised, they said, about professional boundaries. I felt cold. I haven't crossed any, I replied. We're not accusing, they said quickly, just clarifying. When I left, my hands were shaking. She was waiting for me in her office. They went to HR, I said. I know, she replied. They came to me first. And? And I shut it down. I exhaled. At what cost? Her jaw tightened. Political. I looked at her, really looked. The woman who had built her life on precision and restraint, now standing on a fault line because she'd chosen to care. I won't be the reason you fall, I said. She stepped closer. You won't be the reason I don't try. That night, when we stood together in the quiet, I realized the truth neither of us had said out loud yet. This wasn't forbidden because of policy. It was forbidden because it made us vulnerable. And vulnerability in a place built on power was the most dangerous thing of all. No dramatic subject line. No threat written in bold. Just a calendar invite from HR titled Clarification Meeting. My stomach dropped the moment I saw her name CC'd. She didn't call me right away. She didn't rush to my desk or send a reassuring message. Instead, she waited until the office lights dimmed and the hallway outside my cubicle emptied. When she finally appeared, she didn't look like the woman who controlled boardrooms. She looked human. 12 minutes, she said quietly. That's how long they'll give us. For what? I asked, though I already knew. To decide whether this becomes a problem. We sat across from each other in the empty conference room, glass walls reflecting two women who suddenly felt very exposed. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't soften her voice. This wasn't a moment for comfort, it was a moment for truth. They're not accusing us, she said, not yet, but someone noticed the shift, the loyalty, the way you stopped looking scared. I laughed weakly. So being stronger is suspicious now? She didn't smile. That's how power works. She told me everything then, about the board member who'd quietly questioned her leadership after my promotion, about the rival who'd hinted that personal bias was influencing decisions, about how one word from the wrong person could turn everything we'd built into a scandal. And what happens if they decide it is a problem? I asked. She didn't hesitate. I stepped back. The words hit harder than I expected. You'd give up your position? I'd give up power, she corrected, not you. I stood so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. No, I said, I won't let you do that. She finally looked at me then, not like a CEO, not like a protector, but like someone who had already made peace with the cost. You don't get to decide what I'm willing to lose. And I don't get to be the reason, I shot back. I spent years building a career you thought you ruined. I won't rebuild it on your sacrifice. Silence pressed in around us. She exhaled slowly. That's why this is hard. The HR meeting was clinical, too calm, too polite. They asked about timelines, about boundaries, about potential conflicts. They never said the word relationship, but it sat between every sentence like a loaded weapon. When it was over, they thanked us for our transparency. Transparency, as if honesty were something to be managed. Outside the room, she stopped walking. This is where I step away, she said quietly. What? For now, distance. It buys you protection. The realization hit me all at once. She wasn't pushing me away because she didn't care. She was doing it because she cared too much. I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to argue, wanted to beg her not to disappear into professionalism again. Okay, but don't disappear. Her voice softened just a fraction. I won't. The days that followed were the hardest of my life. She became formal, distant, impeccably controlled. No lingering looks, no late-night conversations, no shared silence that felt like home. I told myself this was survival, that love sometimes had to go quiet to stay alive. Then came the email, her resignation. Not immediate, not dramatic, effective in 60 days. I stared at the screen, numb. She found me on the rooftop that evening, wind tugging at her coat. I didn't want you to hear it like that, she said. You're leaving, I whispered. I'm choosing, she corrected. For the company? I asked bitterly. For myself, she said, and for a future where loving you isn't a liability. I felt tears burn, but I didn't let them fall. You once told me, I said, that you ruined my career. She nodded. You were wrong, I continued. You saved it. You just didn't expect it would cost you yours. She stepped closer. Some things are worth the cost. For the first time since this began, I realized the truth. This wasn't about power or loyalty tests or redemption. It was about choice, and we were both standing on the edge of it. The office moved on faster than I expected. Emails replaced conversations. Meetings replaced tension. Her name stopped appearing in calendar invites. But absence has weight, and hers settled into every corner of the building she was preparing to leave behind. She didn't announce her departure publicly. No farewell speech, no dramatic exit, just quiet transitions, handovers, decisions signed in ink that would outlast her presence. We didn't see each other for 2 weeks, not because we weren't allowed to, because we were afraid of what would happen if we did. I told myself this was the price of survival, that sometimes love doesn't end, it just waits. Then one evening, as I packed up late, I found a note on my desk. No signature, just a location and a time. The old conference room on the top floor, the one with the city-facing windows. I knew immediately. She was already there when I arrived, jacket folded over the chair, sleeves rolled up like she used to do when something mattered more than appearances. "You didn't have to come," she said. "Yes," I replied softly. "I did." We stood there for a long moment, two women no longer protected by titles or distance, just honesty. "I accepted a position," she said finally. "Different company, different structure, no overlap with yours." Relief hit first, then fear. "So this is goodbye," I said. She shook her head. "This is me refusing to let power decide who I'm allowed to love." I swallowed hard. And what if I hadn't waited? "I hoped you would," she admitted, "but I would have understood if you didn't." That was the moment everything shifted, not because the risk was gone, but because the choice was finally ours. I spent years believing you ruined my career, then years believing you saved it. The truth is, I saved myself. You just reminded me I was allowed to. She smiled, not the CEO smile, the real one. "And you reminded me," she said, "that love isn't a weakness I need to hide from." We didn't kiss right away. We talked about boundaries, about fear, about what it meant to build something without secrecy or imbalance. When she finally reached for my hand, it wasn't urgent, it was certain. The world didn't explode after that. No scandal, no headlines, no whispered warnings. Just two women walking out of a building that had shaped us, not as boss and employee, but as equals. Months later, I watched her from across a small cafe table, sunlight catching in her hair, coffee cooling between us as we talked about things that mattered less and more. She looked happier. So did I. I used to think love had to come with consequences. Now I know better. Sometimes love isn't about what it costs you, but what it gives you back when you choose it anyway. If this story made you feel seen, if you've ever loved someone you weren't supposed to, if you've ever chosen yourself quietly without applause, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this deserve space, subscribe so more people find them. Because love doesn't always need permission. Sometimes it just needs courage.